March 14th here in Seoul, and I'm Beunji, filling in for Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the escalating global trade war. U.S. President Donald Trump says he stands firm on imposing worldwide tariffs. His announcement comes as the European Union announced plans to slap tariffs on U.S. goods worth almost $30 billion. Trump has hinted at plans to re-establish relations with North Korea's leader. While stressing that he still has good relations with Kim Jong-un, he once again referred to the regime as a nuclear power. The Constitutional Court's ruling on President Yoon's impeachment, which was initially expected by many to happen this week, has been pushed back. This is set to make Yoon's trial the longest presidential impeachment trial in South Korea's history. U.S. President Donald Trump announced plans on Thursday to set additional tariffs on EU alcohol products in retaliation for the European Union's upcoming tariffs on the U.S. starting in April. Meanwhile, South Korean trade officials are in Washington for talks to minimize the impact of the ongoing tariff war. Our Park Gun-woo has the latest.
The U.S.-led trade war is intensifying as President Donald Trump told reporters on Thursday that he would not reconsider reciprocal tariffs set to be imposed on April 2nd.
Look, we've been ripped off for years, and we're not going to be ripped off anymore. Aluminum or steel or cars, we're not going to bend.
Trump also uploaded a post on social media threatening that he would soon impose a 200% tariff on alcohol products, coming out of France and other EU-represented countries, saying that would be great for U.S. wine and champagne businesses. That's in response to plans announced by the European Commission on Wednesday to retaliate with tariffs on U.S. goods worth $28 billion, including a 50% tariff on whiskey from April. This came after the U.S. started imposing a 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imports from Wednesday. EU Commission head Ursula von der Leyen, during a visit to South Africa, said on Thursday the EU would defend its interests, while adding that it's also open to negotiations. She also said the bloc's trade commissioner plans to speak with his U.S. counterpart on related issues over the phone on Friday. And with the trade war intensifying, trade officials from South Korea visited Washington to discuss tariff issues.
If we're taking an exam, there must be some grading criteria. We need to first understand that criteria, and based on that, we should quickly correct any mistakes and need to persuade them on the points where we can.
He added that they plan to request reciprocal measures to minimize the impact of the upcoming U.S. reciprocal tariffs. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
All hands are on deck to protect local Korean businesses from potential disruptions amid growing uncertainty in global trade. From tightening market monitoring to handing out export vouchers, the government says it's working on a comprehensive response strategy. Our Moon Ae-ryun reports.
The South Korean government is ramping up efforts to counter the impact of the Trump administration's 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium imports, which took effect on Wednesday. Acting President Choi Sang-mok and Industry Minister An Dok-keun outlined measures on Thursday to mitigate the impact on domestic industries, particularly small and medium-sized businesses. At an economic meeting, Chair ordered ministries to prevent market imbalances from surplus steel and stressed the need for aggressive negotiations with Washington. To facilitate this, the Korea Trade Investment Promotion Agency has designated a special task force to assist companies in navigating the new trade landscape. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy has pledged to support over 1,300 exporting firms with a total of 61.1 billion Korean won, roughly $42 million in export vouchers. This initiative allows SMEs to access services essential for overseas market expansion, including legal consulting and trade certifications. With the recent rise in global trade uncertainties, the government has increased the export voucher budget by 9% compared to last year. Minister An also convened a meeting with steel industry leaders at the POSCO Center in Seoul, where he reaffirmed the government's commitment to countering protectionist trade measures and pledged to announce a detailed support plan for domestic steel firms within the month. He highlighted plans to strengthen trade defense mechanisms, such as stricter monitoring of unfair imports and anti-dumping measures, in response to concerns about increased market competition from lower-cost steel producers in Southeast Asia. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, he emphasized that the government is working on a comprehensive response strategy, which includes diplomatic efforts through high-level talks with U.S. officials, with the country's Minister for Trade on a visit to Washington to do so. With trade negotiations ongoing, officials stress that both short-term financial aid and long-term structural adjustments will be crucial for the survival and competitiveness of Korean firms in the global market. 문혜련, Arirang News.
The global spot gold price set a new all-time high on Thursday as uncertainty lingers over Trump's trade policies. The April gold futures closing spot price in the New York Mercantile Exchange rose 1.5% from the previous day to close at $2,991.30 per ounce, as investors sought safer assets. The spot gold price rose around 14% this year, following a 27% surge in 2024. U.S. President Donald Trump has also said Thursday that he has a great relationship with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, while also describing the reclusive state as a nuclear power. Trump reiterated his willingness to re-engage talks with the regime's leader. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
U.S. President Donald Trump says he still has a great relationship with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, adding that the two got along great during his first term in office. During a press conference at the Oval Office on Thursday, Trump also said that had he had not been elected for his first term, there would have been a nuclear war with North Korea.
Well, I would. I had a great relationship with Kim Jong-un, North Korea. If I wasn't elected, if Hillary got in, you would have had a nuclear war with North Korea. He expected it. He expected it. And they said, oh, thousands of people. No, millions of people would have been killed. But I got in. We went to Singapore, we met. We went to Vietnam, we met. We got along really good. We had a very good relationship, and we still do.
Trump also referred to Kim and his regime as a nuclear power, a term U.S. officials have mostly refrained from publicly using. It's also not the first time the U.S. leader has used the term to describe the reclusive state, using the term to refer to North Korea shortly after his inauguration on January 20th. Trump also stressed his desire to bring down the number of nuclear weapons in the world, while pointing out Pyongyang's sizable nuclear stockpile. Despite having met Kim after the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, Trump also credited the success of the sporting event to his relations with the North Korean leader, saying that no one wanted to buy tickets to the Olympics for fear of being nuked. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Russian President Vladimir Putin said he agrees with the U.S. proposed 30-day Ukraine ceasefire plan, but insisted that Ukraine would need to accept further conditions before a full agreement could be reached. Speaking at a news conference in Moscow on Thursday, he said he supports the idea, but said there are issues to discuss, hinting that he may have a call with Trump. Putin said one of the areas of contention is Russia's Kursk region, of which he said Russia had regained full control, adding that Ukrainian troops in the region had been isolated. Here in South Korea, President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment verdict is taking longer than expected. The court was initially expected to deliver its ruling today, but it seems the deliberation is more complex than what most observers anticipated. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young has the details.
With no verdict this week, President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment trial will stretch on past the 3-month mark as the Constitutional Court continues to deliberate on the leader's fate following his December 3rd martial law last year. The court typically notifies parties to the trial of the ruling date at least 2 days in advance. However, no such notification has been given yet, meaning the decision will not be announced on Friday as widely expected, but by next week at the earliest. With a hearing scheduled Tuesday for the impeachment trial of Justice Minister Park Sung-jae in the afternoon, it seems likely Yoon's verdict would come later in the week.
As political and public pressure continues to become more fervent by the day, particularly after his release from detention, the court appears to be moving more cautiously to deliver a broadly acceptable decision to a highly polarised society. More than 2.6 million petitions, both supporting and opposing Yoon's impeachment, have been filed to the court.
As Saturday marks 91 days since the National Assembly passed a motion to remove President Yoon from power, Yoon's case will become the longest presidential impeachment trial in South Korea's history. Former President Park Geun-hye's impeachment ruling took 91 days after the motion was passed, while Roh Moo-hyun's took 64 days.
I'd say the longer than expected deliberation suggests internal discussions are more complex than anticipated. It seems the grounds for impeachment are clear, and it is hard to dispute the president's declaration of martial law was unconstitutional and unlawful. But the justices must determine whether the constitutional violations are severe enough to warrant removal from office. There may be justices who argue that it does not meet the threshold for an impeachable offense.
Since the trial hearings wrapped up last month, the justices have been holding almost daily deliberations to review each issue raised by both President Yoon and the National Assembly. At this stage, they are reportedly still in the process of organising their views and exchanging opinions.
They know that this is going to be in the history books. And so I think they really want to make sure that all the reasoning is absolutely watertight. I think they are really trying to do their utmost to avoid having a split judgment or even a minority judgment.
The Constitutional Court is also deliberating on the impeachment trial of Prime Minister Han Duck-soo and is reportedly trying to decide the order of which the rulings for Han and President Yoon should be delivered. Both the National Assembly and Yoon's legal team have called for a swift ruling from the court. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Now, the Constitutional Court has ruled against the impeachment of 4 officials yesterday, including the head of the nation's audit agency and 3 top prosecutors here in Seoul, ahead of the much-anticipated verdict that will decide the president's political fate. For more on this, we turn to Professor Baek Eun-seok from Handong International Law School. Professor Baek, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning to you.
Good morning. So the court has dismissed the parliament's motions to impeach 4 state officials. How will this in any way affect President Yoon's impeachment case?
Right. Apparently, as the court was deciding on these impeachment cases against the government officials, its ruling on the president impeachment case has been pushed back. So that is the most immediate effect, scheduling-wise. Now, substantively, how this may affect the president impeachment case, that's a harder question. I think it will help us if we separate the rhetoric and the substance. The ruling party, PPP, and the president's supporters would like to use this occasion, and actually they did yesterday, to reassert what President Yoon has maintained all along, that a martial law declaration was justified or was necessary in response to the opposition party's abuse of its majority power in the National Assembly through repeated politically motivated impeachment motions against the government officials. It has to be pointed out, though, that the Constitutional Court did say this time and on previous occasions as well, that even when the motions to impeach are dismissed, it does not follow that the National Assembly actually abused its impeachment power to remove. And also in terms of substantive constitutional questions before the court, I think the decisions on the impeachment cases against the government officials should not affect the president case, because the question is essentially whether the constitutional requirements for declaring martial law were satisfied, and the severity of the constitutional violation was such that the president should be removed. And so these questions would have to be decided by the court. And once again, substantively speaking, these decisions on other government officials, in my view, should not affect president's case too much, apart from the rhetorics.
Right, and as we just heard, initially it was widely believed that an impeachment ruling for the president would be made sometime this week, but it appears to have been pushed back. Why is this, and when can we expect this to happen?
Once again, the court deciding on other impeachment cases has pushed the court's ruling in president's case, once again, scheduling wise. And in terms of when exactly the court will issue the ruling in the president impeachment case, that's really hard. And increasingly these days, especially on matters related to president's impeachment and criminal cases, predicting becomes harder. I predicted appearing on this program a couple of weeks ago that the district court is very unlikely to accept President Yoon's argument, asking the court to cancel or rescind detention. But I was wrong on that. But I think, as you mentioned, most court observers and experts have predicted, based on previous impeachment cases against the sitting president, that today, actually, March 14th, Friday, would be the most likely date for the court's ruling. And we don't have that today. So sometime next week, but again, exactly when, that's not an easy question to answer. But I do hope that the court will get to the president's impeachment case sooner rather than later, in order to resolve the continuing political uncertainty and instability in the country.
Right, possibly next week. And also Prime Minister Han Duck-soo also awaits the court's decision after the National Assembly voted to impeach him. So I have to ask you, is there a possibility that the court may make the final decision on the impeachment case of both the president and the prime minister on the same day?
Well, as a matter of possibility, yes. But alternatively, the court may rule in the prime minister's case first before it rules on the president's case, or the court may rule in the president's case before it gets to the prime minister's case. I think there could be arguments for either of those scenarios. Ruling in the prime minister case before the court gets to the president's case, of course, the issues in the prime minister's case are a lot simpler. And as you may know, there was only one hearing in the prime minister's impeachment case. And so the court may get to the prime minister's impeachment case before it reaches and rules on the president case. But on the other hand, given the importance of the president's impeachment case, that case is a lot more consequential than prime minister's case. So the court may get to it before it reaches the prime minister. I think both scenarios are possible. Again, I do hope that the court does issue its ruling in the president's impeachment case sooner rather than later, in order to bring to a close the ongoing political uncertainty and instability.
Right, you just mentioned the importance of this case. And back in 2017, during former President Park Geun-hye's case, the Constitutional Court justices unanimously approved the parliament's motion to impeach her. So do you think there's a possibility that the court is right now taking more time to make a unanimous decision, since an impeachment of a president is such a sensitive issue?
Right, the commentator earlier in this program did say that the fact that the court seems to be taking a lot more time may indicate that the members of the court really want to reach a consensus on this. I think it's very important to once again highlight that any split decision, only the majority justices ruling in one way and having some dissenting justices, that would not be a very good idea at all. So maybe indeed the court is continuing on with its conference of the members in order to come to a unanimous decision. And I think that would be a great service to the country. Again, exactly why the court is taking a lot longer time than expected, there may be some other reasons, but at the end of the day, I think it's very important, critically important, I would say, for the court to issue a unanimous decision on this, so that the continuing political uncertainty and instability of the country will be resolved by the court. And that would be a great service to the country.
Right, and the last thing I want to ask you is the Constitutional Court is currently one short of its full 9-member bench. So another very important issue is the appointment of Justice nominee Ma Eun-hyuk. How is this expected to affect the final decision on President Yoon's case?
Well, the court ruled earlier that the acting president's failure to appoint the nominee was a violation of the rights of the National Assembly. So there was a court ruling on that. And now the acting president is still, considering other factors, and he hasn't actually acted on it yet. Adding one more member to the court may change the scheduling, to say the least. Because once a new member joins the bench, then the hearings may have to be repeated, and there are other procedural issues to consider. Maybe that and some other reasons point to the acting president not appointing, at least until the ruling is issued in the president's case. But at the end of the day, there are other considerations to make, and I hope even when the appointment's made, the court would not be affected in terms of the procedure, in terms of substance in ruling on the president's case at the end of the day.
All right, Professor Baek, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Starting today, South Koreans will no longer have to carry their physical national ID cards, making it easier for tasks such as banking. That's because mobile ID cards will be available nationwide for use in places such as hospitals, banks, and airports. The country's Ministry of the Interior and Safety first introduced mobile ID cards in December last year, launching the service in Sejong City before gradually expanding it. Those eligible can sign up for mobile cards at local community service centers. And from March 28th, these cards will be issued at community centers outside their registered address and online at gov't.24.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has announced a major shake-up of the country's public healthcare system by abolishing NHS England, the central body overseeing the National Health Service. On Thursday local time, Prime Minister Starmer unveiled plans to scrap NHS England and integrate its functions into the Department of Health and Social Care, aiming to streamline healthcare administration. NHS England was established in 2012 to grant the NHS operational independence and has 15,000 staff. While the restructuring aims to eliminate bureaucratic repetition and redirect resources to frontline services, the announcement was met with mixed reactions, with the British Medical Association endorsing the move, hoping that it will improve staff retention and patient outcomes, and the UK's largest healthcare union, Unison, voiced concerns over potential job losses. The European Union and South Africa convened their first bilateral summit in 7 years on Thursday to strengthen economic and strategic ties. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and European Council President Antonio Costa met with South African President Cyril Ramaphosa in Cape Town for the 8th EU-South Africa Summit, where the EU announced a substantial investment package to support South Africa's development initiatives. They included a commitment to an investment package worth $5.1 billion to be allocated to key sectors such as energy and healthcare. The summit also addressed the broader geopolitical context, particularly the escalating trade tensions with the U.S., including President Donald Trump's recent decision to impose a 200% tariff on European alcohol. In Italy, a magnitude 4.4 earthquake struck a region near Naples in the early hours of Thursday local time, with at least 11 people treated for minor injuries. The quake's epicenter was near the coastal town of Pozzuoli, west of Naples, occurring around 1:25 a.m. The earthquake caused minor structural damage, including cracks in buildings and the collapse of facades. This was the strongest tremor in the area in 40 years. Authorities are continuing to monitor the situation closely. An American influencer in Australia is receiving scrutiny after she posted a video of herself removing a baby wombat from its mother, causing public outrage and prompting Australian authorities to review her visa status. The video, now deleted from her social media, shows Sam Jones picking up the baby wombat at night while its distressed mother chases after her. Wildlife experts criticize the act as potentially harmful and illegal under the Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act. Australia's Home Affairs Department is reviewing the conditions of Jones' visa to determine if immigration laws were breached.
Expect a pleasant spring day across Korea, and especially those of us in the west will have mid-April-like temperatures with highs surpassing 20 degrees Celsius in Gwangju. The best part, air quality will be normal in most regions, so you can better enjoy the sunshine. But those in Daejeon, Gwangju, and Jeollabuk-do could notice dusty air at times during the day today. This mild trend will stick around through Saturday before cooler air moves in on Sunday with nationwide wintry precipitation. So next Monday, we could be waking up to sub-zero temperatures here in Seoul. So make the most of this warm stretch under cleaner air today. Seoul gets up to 18 degrees, Daejeon at 20. Meanwhile, easterly winds will drag down the highs a couple of degrees in eastern parts of Korea with highs of 14 degrees in Gyeongju, Busan at 15 degrees. Jeju and the south coast will see rain from tomorrow, expanding nationwide on Sunday and lingering into early next week. So it's going to be much chillier than this week.
All right, that's all we have for our morning edition of Arirang News. We'll be back with more stories making the headlines at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.